One of the big news stories going on in the NFL right now is the fact that former 10th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, Josh Rosen, is being cut by the Miami Dolphins. This isn't too big of a surprise because the Dolphins just drafted Tua Tagovailoa, 5th overall in this past year's draft. They have Ryan Fitzpatrick as that veteran bridge quarterback. And so Josh Rosen, a guy that hadn't really shown much in his short time with the Dolphins, was just an expendable piece that they didn't see having a future with him. But this is big news because, Josh Rosen, this is only going to be, he was entering his third year in the NFL, and he was a quarterback that had a lot of hype and a lot of potential surrounding his name. Here was a guy, when he was coming out of high school into UCLA, even after his first year at UCLA, he was viewed as potentially that next great quarterback prospect, mentioned in the same breath as Andrew Luck and in these elite quarterback prospects. Now, we're quick to kind of make those assumptions because Christian Hackenberg was once that guy too. But there was a lot to like about Rosen as a prospect. I was a big fan of Rosen. He was my number one quarterback in the 2018 class, ahead of guys like Sam Darnold and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. He was my number one rated quarterback. He was my second overall player in that 2018 NFL draft class. The only player I had ahead of him was Saquon Barkley. Now, this is going to go down as a miss for me, and I'll take that lump. But to me, this is a learning experience. And one of the things that I've gone back and looked at with Rosen's struggles is how I view the quarterback position and scouting it and projecting these players going to the NFL draft. Rosen, when he came out, he had flawless mechanics. He had a good arm strength because of his mechanics. He had good accuracy. He could throw with touch at all three levels. He could throw with power at all three levels. He didn't have maybe a Josh Allen type arm strength where he could throw the ball a country mile, but he could throw the ball downfield. He could drive it downfield. He could throw it with touch. He could, those bucket throws to his receivers, dropping them in over the defender to the receiver. He showed all that talent. But some of the questions about Josh Rosen coming out kind of makes me wonder, and it's caused me to reevaluate how I look at quarterbacks. And a big part of that is overall athleticism. Josh Rosen is your prototypical pocket quarterback. He's going to sit in the pocket. He needs an offensive line that's going to keep him, with not a lot of traffic in front of him. He could step up in the pocket and work his, magic throwing the ball out of the pocket. Well, we're seeing in today's NFL, we don't have great offensive lines. The defenses are more athletic and fast and explosive and all that stuff. So you need quarterbacks who can move and adjust. Just look at the top young quarterbacks in the NFL. Russell Wilson, Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. Even Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyler Murray are all guys that, some of them are elite athletes. Others of them are good enough athletes that they can move around in the pocket, elude defenders, extend plays. And Josh Rosen doesn't have that. He was a statue. And a big part of that is, even at the college level, it caused him to get hurt. He had concussion issues. He had a knee injury that cost him part of a season. So that's something that I've taken a look at with my quarterbacks, and I don't necessarily look at, pocket movement. Can they slide around in the pocket? I want guys that are athletes that can move, and we're seeing that in today's NFL. But another thing that we've got to think about, and something that I've long thought, is quarterback success, and really any position, any player, their success is based off of fit within an NFL scheme. And quarterback is the prime position. If you are brought into a system and you're not a good fit, you're going to struggle. And Josh Rosen, ever since his time at UCLA, I feel has been completely mismanaged. Now, I'm not going to go out and say, if Josh Rosen had better coaching, he would have been the star quarterback, top 10 overall quarterback. I'm not saying that. But if you look at his time at UCLA all the way up until this time with the Miami Dolphins, can we honestly say that Josh Rosen's been put in a place to have success? Now let's think about UCLA. He goes to UCLA, has a connection with Jim Mora, friends of the family, He goes there, and maybe that's why he picked them, but he goes to a program, and maybe this is his bad decision. He goes to a program that's not had a lot of success and hasn't been putting skill players in the NFL. So when he's at UCLA, he doesn't have a whole lot of weapons. His two best weapons were Jordan Lashlee, who was a 5th-round pick, and Caleb Wilson, who was a 7th-round pick. Other guys like Theo Howard, Thomas Duarte, Jordan Payton, Devin Fuller weren't even drafted. Josh Rosen also, he's just gone through this cycle. He had 3 different offensive coordinators at UCLA. He had a different coordinator, so then a different coordinator with the Cardinals, and then a new coordinator with the Dolphins. And that's going to happen when you transition to the college to the NFL and team to team. But when he was at UCLA, he came in and had a tremendous true freshman year and looked the part. His offensive coordinator was Noel Mazzoni, a true spread type quarterback. But his head coach, Jim Moore Jr., thought, hey, we've got this quarterback. He's going to be the next NFL number 1 overall pick. We need to bring in an NFL-style offense. So even though they showed a lot of promise under Mazzoni, they relieve him of his duties and bring in and promote Kenny Polamalu, who was their running backs coach, who had experience at USC in the West Coast offense. And so he comes in, a guy that's not ready for a coordinator job, doesn't have experience grooming quarterbacks, and Rosen struggles, ends up getting hurt. They fire Polamalu. And then they bring in Jed Fish, another NFL guy, another pro-style offense. And Rosen plays well, but it just isn't a good fit. So then he comes out, and there's concerns about his injuries. There's concerns about his character. Does he have kind of a Jay Cutler, kind of grumpy, bad body language? He doesn't get along with teammates. So there is those concerns. And he falls in the draft. Baker Mayfield goes number 1. We see Sam Darnold go 3 to the Jets. Josh Allen goes 7 to the Bills. And he ends up falling to the Arizona Cardinals, who end up trading up to 10 to get him. And I love that pick because I was a fan of Josh Rosen, and I thought, okay, he's going to go to Arizona. He's going to get a chance. Let's see if they can build around him. And then the Cardinals, that was the year that they hired Steve Wilks as their head coach. And Wilks was not a good coaching candidate. He had that success with Carolina as a defense coordinator. He brings in Mike McCoy as his offensive coordinator. Mike McCoy has been a veteran offensive coordinator, but he's not viewed as this forward-thinking, high-octane offensive guru. And his claim to fame is just kind of fitting pieces in, and he had that success with Tim Tebow in Denver, and it just wasn't a good fit. They couldn't scheme. Rosen had success. He had Larry Fitzgerald, who's still an ageless wonder and still producing, but he wasn't the Larry Fitzgerald of old. They had Christian Kirk. They had Chad Williams were their receivers. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. So you have a quarterback who can't move. You have an offensive line that can't block, and kind of lackluster receivers. So it wasn't a good fit. They fire their head coach. They end up bringing in Cliff Kingsbury, and Kingsbury wants his own guy. I don't blame him. Kingsbury's got this one shot to make it in the NFL. They've got the number 1 overall pick, and you got Kyler Murray sitting out there who fits perfectly in with what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do. I don't blame them for taking that pick. So right there, you're giving up on Josh Rosen after 1 year. Did he show a lot? Not necessarily, but a lot of rookies struggle, especially with the lack of weapons. So they trade him to the Miami Dolphins for a 2nd-round pick. He goes to the Dolphins. I thought that was a good fit. I like the hiring of the Dolphins. I like their coaching staff. They brought in Chad O'Shea from the New England Patriots to be their offensive coordinator. And I thought, okay, he's going to bring that Patriot-style offense. Tom Brady, similar athleticism as Josh Rosen. But you look at the Dolphins, once again, terrible offensive line. Chad O'Shea proved in his 1 year as the coordinator that he didn't have what it takes, and he ended up getting fired. And, they went back and forth with him and Fitzpatrick. So did Rosen, didn't really show in his limited time. Once again, also didn't have the greatest weapons. Devontae Parker, turned it on late when he had a good connection with Fitzpatrick. They had Preston Williams. Him and Rosen seemed to hit it off in preseason, but then Williams got hurt. Jakeem Grant. They didn't have the receivers. And so every step along Josh Rosen's path, he hasn't had a whole lot of continuity. He hasn't had a coach or a coordinator that can really develop him. He's had some of the worst coaching in his time in the NFL, and he had some of the worst coaching in his time in college. And so, yeah, he probably wasn't going to pan out. Me having him as the number 2 rated prospect in the 2018 class, that's a whiff on my part. I'll fully admit that. But can we truly label him as a true bust? I mean, how would he have done in a better situation? Would he be doing better than Sam Darnold in New York? I don't think so. Would he be doing better than Baker Mayfield in Cleveland? I don't know. But look at some of the quarterbacks that are having the most success. Lamar Jackson in Baltimore and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Both of those franchises drafted those quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is the 10th overall pick. They drafted those quarterbacks and built the offense around them. And they both have coaches and coordinators who have invested fully and built their team around them. Lamar Jackson has his limitations as a thrower, but they built the offense to highlight his strengths. Patrick Mahomes went into a situation where he got to sit and learn and develop under Andy Reid, and they've developed that offense around them. Josh Rosen never got the chance, and it probably doesn't help that he was drafted by an organization that hasn't done well evaluating players, especially since Bruce, if you take away Bruce Arians' good coaching. He goes to the Dolphins. Not had a whole lot of success yet. I can't wait to see where Josh Rosen goes. I'd love to see him go to a team where he can sit behind a veteran quarterback who's got a good offensive mind, and we'll see if he's a guy that can maybe develop into a solid starting quarterback, or backup, I should say. But at this point, his career, he's looking more like a Christian Hackenberg type guy that wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the XFL this upcoming season, maybe the next season. But I hope he's able to turn it around. I hope he's able to come in and be a solid backup for a team and maybe come in and play well as, in a spot start or because of an injury. But he was a guy that I liked, that I thought had a lot of talent. It's just I think maybe he's a decade or a generation too late into the NFL. If he would have been drafted in the 90s, I think he would have been a better fit. But he's just not a great fit for today's NFL. It's too bad. He's got some talent. It's just, just hasn't worked out for him, and that's too bad.